Hey, welcome to the We're Better Together podcast. I'm Ian Stevenson.
And I'm Daniel Arduña. We come from different backgrounds, but we're working together. So our goal is to help you navigate being better together in the various sectors of your life by bringing you a once-a-month interview and some stimulating thoughts on the weeks in between.
We hope this podcast keeps you tracking on building something better together, whether it's your marriage, your family, your workplace. We want to serve you. So here's today's episode.
We are excited to be back with another 10-minute tune-up today. And today we want to look at an idea of legacy. If you happen to listen to our most recent podcast, you heard a great example of a story of seeing a parent and a child working together for this idea of kindness and just seeing this movement of kindness and seeing how this parent is supporting this child who is chasing after a vision that they have, but seeing the collaboration and the sense of being better together within that. So we wanted to come back and just break that down a little bit more, offer some encouragement to our listeners in that regard, and dip into this idea again of what does it look like to see families, to see generations work together and be better in that way. Ian, for you, what comes to mind when you think about that idea of legacy and seeing generations come together?
Well, I think, it's going to be cool to do this, Daniel, because we're both coming at it from a little different perspective, right? I have 3 kids and 7 grandkids. You're working in a school where you're seeing high school kids and parents and all working together. Obviously, you're a kid. You grew up in a family. You get all that stuff. So we're going to come at this from both sides of the aisle, but I loved how you introduced it with legacy, because I do really think that part of legacy is how you invest in the next generation, whether it's kids in your school or kids in your home. And that's what leaves legacy, is when that next generation comes up. So I really think this is a lot about legacy, and that when you learn to work better together with your kids, with the next generation, it does leave legacy. So just kudos to how you introed that. And then, what comes to my mind is, honestly, when you say that, is my own kids. I have 3 grown kids now, and just some of the memories of trying to work together with them over the years. Like, I think there's seasons where it's easier and seasons when it's harder. But I think that, like, being intentional about wanting to build that attitude and that ability to work together is really critical, even to help fostering a good relationship. Because if you have that end goal in mind of wanting to be constantly in their life and working together, it does impact how you are even when they're little. So that was the first thing that popped into my mind, was just it's a season. Because when you think about working with your kids, there's all these different seasons they go through, right? There's preschoolers, there's elementary, there's high school, there's young adult, then they're parents. And so, like, I've seen all 3 of those, all 4 or 5 of those phases, and each one is different. Each one is different.
That's good. That's good. I think for myself, I don't have kids right now. But I think about being a kid, as you said, and just being raised by my parents. And I think even in a very simple way, I think that the nature of my parents choosing to engage in conversation, ask questions throughout that whole process of what you said, from preschool, elementary, into middle school, into high school, even that small, simple thing made a huge difference when it comes to developing a relationship and being able to find that sense of being able to be better together and create legacy. Them engaging in relationship intentionally was huge. I think about being an adult now too, just from a personal sense. Most recently, I think about how my dad has always been someone that loves to build, and a passion of his has been about building things. I haven't been real big on the building things, but then I had an idea here in this season of COVID. I want to build this arcade system. Well, I said, my dad knows a lot about building, and I've got some kind of sense in the technological piece. And so it was really cool, because my dad and I came together in that and said, let's bring these 2 things together to accomplish some goal and vision that I had. And it was one of the most beautiful times and moments that I can think of recently of getting that time with my dad, seeing something that he's passionate about, seeing something that I'm passionate about, and seeing how both of our knowledge was needed in order to reach this goal. And thinking about what we're talking about right now, that one just came to me in the midst of talking. And I said, that was actually a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
And
There's something powerful about when you work together on something, right?
Yeah.
So I think, like, even for our listeners, as you're considering the practical nature of this, to take what Daniel just said and run with it. So, like, if you have preschoolers, how do you work together with them on just cleaning the room instead of you doing it for them, or dreaming that they're going to do it themselves? How do you do it together and make it fun? When they're an elementary kid, what kind of school projects do they have that you can work on together? And instead of it being a drudgery and a pain in the butt, you helping them with their homework, make it like something you live into that's building something. You know, junior high, high school, like, what are some trips you could take together, camping trips, things where you have to work together in order for it to work? Like, how do you get really intentional about building something and doing something together? To your point, Daniel, you had an idea. Man, my dad's good at this. We could do this together. I think it goes both ways. Parent to child, child to parent.
Yeah.
And if we can come to a common thing, we always go back to focus, adjust, persevere, right?
Yeah.
And figure out what that focus is, then you've got a head start.
Absolutely. I think that what I see within that, and I think we got another 10-minute tune-up that we can pull out of this one. But as you were sharing that, I was thinking about this idea of creating a space in your family where you have the freedom to fail. What you just shared about could be a huge thing that people draw away, and something in the work that I've been able to do in youth ministry or in substitute teaching and being involved in a campus is when you give the next generation opportunities to leap, but you've created a culture where there's the freedom to fail. There's something powerful that can come out of that because they get to jump with that freedom. What you said, hey, I'm inviting them into the process of even cleaning a room, but I'm allowing them to maybe help come up with the ideas of how we're going to want to do that. Will every one of those ideas work? Maybe not. But if you've had the vision to set out that you're okay with that because it's a part of the process, that's huge. And to give anyone of any generation the freedom to fail can help create that kind of relationship that you're looking for, that kind of trust that you would want in that parent-child relationship, in that family dynamic.
Yeah, and it's being intentional, don't you think? I remember when we did interview number 3 with Meg and Ben Glassman, who run chooseourlegacy.com. If any of you want to check that out, we'll put the website on the banner here. Choose Our Legacy. Oh, that's a Legacy Coalition. That's a different one. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I wanted you to see this chooseourlegacy.com. This is really for your family. We interviewed this couple in interview number 3, and the word that kept coming up with them was intentional. And I think in chooseourlegacy.com, they talk about being intentional with your family. And one of the ways that you work better together with your kids is you're intentional. You're intentional about the projects. You're intentional about giving them the freedom to fail. You're intentional about, what can we do together that can help build the legacy that we're going to leave. And I think in chooseourlegacy.com, they try to get you to work together on a whole mission for your family. Like, what's your family going to be about? So talk about children and parents working together on something. It's working together on what's that family mission. And I think that intentionality is so critical to this, because most parents and children aren't intentional about building how they're going to work together. They just kind of go through life, do stuff here and there, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But when you're intentional, it makes a legacy, makes something happen.
There's something powerful about that invitation in that breaks through maybe a parent feeling like my kid would never listen to me, or a kid feeling that towards their parent. Why is my parent going to want to hear any idea that I have? But when you can be intentional and have that invitation, as you shared earlier, both ways, when a parent might invite a child in, or a child might invite a parent into something, it's huge, and you can start to break down those walls.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to share this Legacy Coalition thing too, which was I put on the screen a minute ago, but this is a thing my wife and I found on grandparenting, and it's about being intentional in your grandparenting, of really leaving a legacy with your kids. So talk about working on something with your kids. How about working with your kids on what you're developing into your grandkids, their kids? And if you can get on the same page with that kind of stuff, man, it makes such a huge difference. So we've been excited about this site that we found, wanted to share it with our listeners too. But man, I just, as we close down this 10-minute tune-up, we just want to encourage you guys, like, think about the next generation, whether you have kids, you don't have kids, you have grandkids or not. Like, just look for ways to impact the next generation and be intentional about what you can build into them, how you can work together with them cross-generationally.
We're so excited to share this 10-minute tune-up. We look forward to bringing more of these to you, as well as the once-a-month interviews that we have. And then we just want to remind you as well, if this is encouraging you at all, feel free to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of those areas that you can find us. And feel free to share those with friends of yours if you think that anything that we have to share might be able to give them encouragement as they strive to be better together in whatever it is that they are chasing after. We'll see you all again soon.
Thanks so much. See you next time.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today. If there's anything you heard today that was helpful to you, that you think might be helpful to somebody else,
please like, subscribe, and share this podcast so we can help others be better together as well.